Hi, it's Jared from Strongroots Farm. Welcome back to the farm. Today we are going to be installing my favorite gate here on the farm, the spring gate. Stick around, I'll take you through it all. I'll take you through the uses, how you should set it up, and why I like these so much. Today we're going to install a spring gate, and I don't even have all the pieces, so you'll get to see kind of how we jerry-rig this, if you will, or put these together when you don't have the perfect parts, because these are recycled. These are pieces of spring gates that have been cut off over time. We only have a little 12-foot section here. We're going to be putting this in, so it should work fairly easy. Now, these are my favorite gates. I've said that, but I want to give that a little disclaimer here. We never use these for perimeter gates. These are not a hard, fast, permanent gate. These are just gates that you would just use a little bit more strength than your typical poly wire gates, okay? So on the exterior of the entire farm, everywhere I have a gate is a hard fasten gate. I also do not use these in areas where we are sorting or working animals. Now, I do have some videos out there where out in the pasture, I show you how to use these to sort calves, sort cows, and we like them very much. But as far as loading and our working system, we have hard fast gates. So today we're going to be installing these. Let's get started. To give you a quick overview, we're going from this post right here to this post right here, just over 12 foot in length. And all it's going to do is simply segregate off this little paddock that we have here. It's just a little winter paddock. This is probably just 1/4 of an acre. And it's just to limit our roaming during the winter. I don't want a hard gate here. We go in and out of this a lot. And we want the cows to roam freely once all the grass is down, but instead of setting up temporary T-posts and moving stuff around in the ice, I thought I'll just install these spring gates here. So the first thing is to put our hangers on the post. So we have two types of hangers we're gonna be using today. So I use these to repair fences. I don't even really know what they're called. Basically, you're gonna put a screw in the top and the bottom. It has this plastic peg. You can use this to set up your bumper wire on your fence, but today this is going to be the start of the spring gate, so the butt end. And then the other end, we've bought these ones, basically the same thing, except it has the metal hook in it. And this will be the hook end of our spring gate. This is what is going to electrify our spring gate, because my electricity will be put right around this bolt right here in this metal plate. And then when I hook the spring gate, it will then be electrified. So it's dead when it's opened and it's electrified when it's closed. You don't have to set them up that way. I'll talk about the electricity as we get it at the end here, but you got to start with these two things. So we're going to do two. We're going to do two heights of them. The very first height is going to be about 2 feet high. So I'm going to put my both ends at 2 feet high. We'll build the 2 foot high one, and then I'll determine how high I want to make the second one. Nothing fancy here. I'll just take you and show you this. So we simply put 2 screws in. I like decking screws. They're coated, they're strong. And you know, here's my metal side. So if you want to see how high it is, just about my height of my knee, about 2 foot high on that. I'm going to go ahead, since it's out of the way and I got the drill and the stuff out, I'm going to make the next one about probably 4 foot here, just because that's enough that they won't jump it. But I want them separated enough that they don't try to go between them. All right, next we're gonna attach our handles to our spring. Now, it's important to know that this connects here with electricity. There are different types of handles that don't. This is not my preferred one though. This one has a spring tensioner built into the handle. These are nice handles, but because this is a spring, I would prefer for this to be solid. Once again, I'm using what I have. I didn't want to go out and spend money, and I have all this stuff. So what I don't like about these is they stretch over time and they can wear out, but we're not going to hard fasten this. So you'll see we're just going to take our spring and we're going to collapse this back onto it. Now the kicker is, once I come back around, I'm going to rotate that back through there again twice. So now instead of 1, I have 2. And I'll do that one more full time. So now I've got three of those hooks through that. Now you could take a crimp and slide a crimp on here and crimp it if you want. What I'm gonna do is just take my pliers and bend a little angle in this, and then we'll be done with this. And I like to do this before we attach them. It's easier to do it when you're out here in the gator and not bending over there at the point, in case you wanna see that. So I just bent that over a little bit so it's back in the inside of it. Nothing fancy. Now for the other end, I'm gonna do the same thing over there. These have that plastic peg that goes down in them. I'm gonna peel off at least 2 loops. You can see I've already bent this one over just to make sure it doesn't unwind. I'm gonna get 2, maybe 3 loops in underneath that thing and stick that peg down through it, and that will lock this one in place. And we're all hooked up. That's pretty much it. Let's hook it up over here now. So now on this side, it simply comes over and it's gonna hook into one of our holes. Now the spring gate essentially is up. I mean, that's all we really have to it. It's up. Let's back up a little bit here. So you can see, which is bouncing around on us here, but it's low enough that calves aren't gonna wanna go underneath there. Baby calves probably could, but they're gonna get shocked if they hit that. Now, it's not electrified yet. I'm gonna show you how to hook that up. But that's gonna be our first one. And then the second one, we want high enough that animals won't go between, but also won't go over. So there's a fine line there. And I find it's about 16 to 20 inches between the 2 foot at most. Doesn't really matter as long as you get 2 sets. I don't wanna be higher off the ground. The lowest I'm gonna go is about 16 inches because I don't want grass to grow up in it. These things can get tangled together. They can become like the slinkies when they would get knotted as a kid, and they're a pain in the butt. They can be. So as long as you keep them separated, as long as you don't let them get tangled in grass and let grass grow up in them, they're really nice. So now I'm simply just gonna repeat that, get this second one in, and then we'll start getting them hot. So next we're gonna connect our electricity from our electric fence using underground wire. That's what I like to do. If you use the standard high tensile wire, it'll end up touching your wood post. Now, if you're in a situation where it won't, it's not in a way there, you can use that. But I like to take underground wire basically from my second post here. I'll zip tie it along there. That way I can cut it and adjust it if I need to. And then I'll connect it to the metal hook holders. So those metal triangles, essentially whatever shape that is with the 3 holes in it, that we hook our fence in up here. We're gonna simply use these bolts to connect that fence. You can put 2 washers on them and squeeze it between. You can tie it to it, whatever you want to do but to make a good connection. I like the washers the best. That's the best thing. But there is some thought process that has to go into how we hook these now. And I want to talk you through that because it might change what you decide to do or how many of these you decide to hook up. All right, I want to give you the situation here first. So my electricity comes back towards that power tower over there and comes down this fence line from my charger and then connects to this high tensile fence right here at that point over here at this gate. So it will run down this gate. And then that's where we're gonna connect it in to our handles. Now I'm only gonna connect the handles this time. That means when it's unhooked, when it's not latched, those springs won't be electrified. That's nice. So if you're out here, you can leave the charger on, unhook it because it has that plastic handle, not get shocked. And then if it gets tangled, you can untangle it because that spring is dead. You can also use that spring though, that spring gate, to send a charge across. So over here is a bumper wire. You could hook that bumper wire to the beginning as well. That way, when it was hooked up, electricity flowed from this side through your spring gate into your bumper wire over here. The negative with that being your only source of energy is that if you want them to come in and out of this, it means your bumper wire would then be dead on this side. So you kind of have to think about that. The other scenario is, well, what if you wanted it to be hot all the time? And I have some spring gates like this, where this side has a bumper wire and this side has a bumper wire, and we connected it at both sides, even though I didn't need the spring gate to transfer energy. So I'm gonna spin the camera around and kind of talk to you about that, because that's kind of a argumentative point about people who build electric fence. I told you my electricity comes down this way. It also tees off at this and goes all the way around the outside of this paddock, ending up back at my spring gate. So I have a decision to make here. I can set it up like I'm going to, and that the reason is I want that spring gate dead, or I could connect both sides, and when electricity flowed through, it would flow down this way, across my spring gate, and into this fence, and electricity would travel that way. But electricity is also flowing around this way, around, and basically electric would shock from both sides until it ran into each other. Some people do not like to do this. The negative is that it's hard to find a fault because you have electric flowing from both sides. That's what they say. Well, simply, if you know how your system is set up, if you're finding a fault, you could just unhook this fence, hang it up, and then you would find which way the fault went. Now, in this little quarter-acre field, that makes 0 sense. But let's say this field was 50 acres. It's nice to have electricity flowing both directions, because the pro is, let's just say somewhere out here on that fence, 50-acre field now, that fence is broke. If you only had it running one direction, that would mean half of your fence isn't electrified because it's broke in the middle. So all of this would be dead until you found that fault. Whereas if you had the electricity hooked up to both sides of this fence, even though it's broke over there, the electric would flow backwards this way, ensuring that your fence was all still on, and then your charger would be lower in voltage, because wherever it was broke would cause a fault. That voltage would fall. It would tell you, hey, there's a fault somewhere. You would come and find, and you would probably come out here and hear it clicking, because whatever broke, a tree fell, something happened, electric would be flowing from both directions now, causing that thing to then spark. So there's pros and cons for it. Some people do not like that the electric runs both directions through the same line, and where it would essentially travel around and run into each other. I have not found that to be a problem. Now, that being said, I went through all that explanation there because that is not the way the book tells you to install it. You're supposed to only have one loop. That's the way they like to install it. But I've had a lot of old timers show me it doesn't matter. I've got multiple instances on this farm where they just happen to run into each other like that in a couple little places where we have an acre lotted off in one spot, or we wanted a gate so that both sides is electrified, whether the gate is open or whether it's shut. So I kind of like it like that. But in this instance, it's a quarter acre. It doesn't really matter. This is the only entrance and exit for this spot. And I want it to be dead when it's opened so that I can work on it if it would get tangled. And that is a handy feature to have. Some people will put the spring gate up and then also trench underground, that underground wire, ensuring both sides of the fence are hot even when the spring gate is dead. That is a very nice system, but it's a lot of work to dig that in. I'm not gonna do that. I don't need to do that, especially when the spring gate's carrying the current for me and my other side is already hot. Now, there's two ways I could do this. I could run my electric hot from over here and run it to one of the handle connectors. And then I could come across, and over here on this side, I could run a wire from this wire up to this wire, probably 1 foot in, which I've done this before. And that would ensure both lines are hot. And then when you unhooked them, both were dead. Or you could run two from your hot wire underground cables, one to each handle. That way you could put one in and one not. I've seen this used and I kind of like it because you could take the lower one down, baby calves could go underneath, but the mamas will stay on this side if you want to give smaller calves their own portion of pasture. It is a kind of a handy thing. Or you could simply run one, which is what I'm gonna do, run one underground wire to the bottom, but I'm not gonna cut it, and then I'm just gonna keep looping around and then take it up to the top, and that's where I'll disconnect it. And then both will be hot then. However you wanna do it, it's gonna work the same either way. It's just, what do you wanna do? Got my wire, underground wire cut. I've stripped off quite a bit from each end. So I'm gonna start this at the top one, and then I'll measure down, and I will cut a piece in the center here out where this will show, and then I'll wrap that around the bottom one, and then I'll simply take it back my line, and then I will use a crimp to crimp this to the fence. And then I also, after my crimp, I like to do a few wraps. And so I'll put that in place and then I'll walk you through it and show you. So I came up, I didn't have my washers, but we linked it in here. I wrapped it around this once. I think that's probably overkill. Got it around our bolt, which connects through here. I do like wrapping it around this, or you can also get a squeeze nut that will go in one of these holes. That is also a very good way to do this. So around this one, come down, little fence staple, wrapped around here as well, another fence staple, and then we came back to our beginning. I'll show you this, and I've crimped to my hot wire, and I left enough out that I can get a few wraps. 6 is nice, but just for electricity, because we're not pulling tension, 2 or 3 around there is good. So the more that you can wrap, the better, and the better connection you can make, the better off you are. Now, first time I did this, I screwed this all up, leaving it one piece like this, just to let you know I make mistakes. So I went from there to this with a squeeze nut and then a second piece up. If you make a mistake, that's really the best way to do it to fix it. And let me show you these squeeze nuts, what I'm talking about. Okay, so the squeeze nuts, this is what I'm talking about. It has a little slit in the nut there, and what you'll do is take this washer out of it. So we'll take it apart, we'll take this washer out, and then you'll put the wire in this, put it through that hole, put this washer back in like this, so your wire will be in this slot between the washer. It crimps down on it, and then when you put this nut on it, it'll be down in that hole, and it will hold tight, and this will make good connection with all those metal things. These are nice. You can get it like a 4-pack for like $3. This is worth it. It's an easier way to make sure you get it right, and you only have to cut off on your underground wire like an inch to make that connection so that you can use this all in one piece like we did. These are very effective. I did it without having to spin this. Now that I've done it, I probably should have done this. So there you have it. That's some quick spring gates. They'll be there forever. We unhook them, they're not on, not a big deal. It's gonna let Limpy come out here and keep her out of that grass to keep her from wandering so much. And so that'll be there. It's nice, it's in place. I don't have to worry about stuff getting tangled in them. They're very effective, very cheap. So you can do 10 or 12 gates on your farm for the price of one hard gate if you use these spring gates and install them like we did here today. There you have it. Hope that video helped. A little bit more talking than tutorial there. Wanted to kind of explain why we do the things. It's kind of how our videos go here on the farm. Appreciate you watching. If you have comments, I still have that exciting video coming up about acreage on ground for cattle as far as grass-fed versus grain-fed. I'm doing a lot of research for that. That is coming out soon. I'm just trying to wait for a good evening when we have good weather to film that and show all those details. But that is coming up. I promise it'll be out here in the next week or two. Hope this one helped you though. Please come along with us. If this is your first video, like and subscribe. Until next time, have a good one.